These last two are sort of companion pieces. The first one, it's a proposed amendment to the Exeter Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 1 in general, Section 2.1, decorum at town assemblies and meetings, and Section 2.2, enforcement of decorum.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Motion's made and seconded to open the public hearing. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
We gonna do these individually or
Well,
together?
yeah, well, I think, well, why don't we just do one at a time? And I'll tell you why. When you look at the copy of the actual ordinance, I think I have it right here. So we do not have it, I should have it. Excuse me just a minute. Here it is. Just a minute. I'm just going to read this to you, and I just want to first tell you the genesis of these ordinances, these proposed ordinances. During the month of June, I don't remember the date, but there was a meeting here, a public meeting of the zoning board, and there was some disruption caused at that meeting. And when I was told about that, I immediately contacted our solicitor and asked if he would be kind enough to meet with our town sergeant, because the situation involved his input, which is part of the second ordinance here that we're going to consider in a few minutes. But we spoke about conduct, and so we're calling this an ordinance relating to decorum at town assemblies and meetings. I'm just going to read this for the record, for your information, and for anyone who might be listening or watching. Section 2.1, prohibited activities. While any town assembly, the town council, or any duly constituted board or commission of the town of Exeter is in session, attendees must observe and maintain civility, order, and decorum, and no person, member, or attendee shall by statement, action, conversation, or otherwise delay or interrupt the proceedings at the peace of the town assembly, town council, town board, or town commission, or disturb any member thereof while speaking or by refusing to obey the orders of the town, assembly, council, board, or commission, or its presiding officer. Second section, entitled Cessation of Address. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who shall become boisterous while addressing the town assembly, council, board, or commission, or any member thereof, shall be forthwith, by the presiding officer, barred from further audience before the assembly, council, board, or commission at that meeting, unless permission to continue is granted by a majority vote of the assembly, council, board, or commission. The second section reads, enforcement. The sergeant at arms. The town sergeant shall be the sergeant at arms at any town assembly or meeting, including town council, board, or commission meetings. Special constables who've been duly elected by the town council may, at the request of the chair or presiding officer, also be designated to attend and act as sergeant at arms. The sergeant at arms shall carry out, for the purpose, shall carry out all orders and instructions given by the chair or presiding officer for the purpose of maintaining order and decorum at any such town assembly, council, board, or commission meeting. Removal procedure. If any person conducts himself or herself in a disorderly manner in any assembly or meeting referenced above, the chair, moderator, or presiding officer may order that person to withdraw and remove him or herself from the assembly or meeting, and on the person's refusal, may order the town sergeant, sergeant-at-arms, or any town constable present to take him or her from the meeting until the meeting is adjourned in accordance with state law or local ordinance. And duties and removal complaint. Upon instruction of the chair or presiding officer, it shall be the duty of the sergeant-at-arms to peacefully remove any person who violates the order and decorum of the meeting, and if applicable, may cause him or her to be prosecuted for the violation of any applicable provisions of the Exeter Code of Ordinances or of state law. Any such complaint may be signed by the chair, presiding officer, town sergeant, or any special constable in attendance. Sorry, that's wordy. And I appreciate that our solicitor provided this to us for our consideration, which he did, and we've considered this. And before I ask you, any of you to speak, I just wanted you to know that at the end of each section, or at the end of the ordinance actually, references are made to state statutes. And again, these are somewhat outdated, difficult to enforce without any question. I particularly like this one. This is state statute, section 45-16-9, attendance of special constables at schools or meetings. A special town constable shall, upon the request of any citizen, and this is why I know this is a very old piece of legislation, and upon being tendered the sum of 30 cents an hour for the service required, attend any school meeting lawfully assembled for the purpose of preventing interruption or disturbance, and may arrest without warrant or detain not exceeding 6 hours any person found by the town constable in the act of willfully interrupting or disturbing a school or meeting. It's a state statute.
It's Rhode Island.
And the reason it's there, clearly other towns, and we all know, we watch television today, we know that people can be disruptive, boisterous, and try to shut things down. So all the rules that we can make and present could be, they are what they are. But I appreciate, again, you bring this to our attention, because the reports that got back to me after that night by a number of people, I found troubling for sure. This is a disorderly conduct piece. This is Title II, Criminal Offenses, Chapter 11-45, Disorderly Conduct. And I'm only going to read a couple pieces. In a public place or near a private residence, well, that's not appropriate. In a public place, someone who disturbs another person by making loud and unreasonable noise, which under the circumstances would disturb a person of average sensibilities. These are definitions of what disorderly conduct is. Here's another one. Engages in conduct which obstructs or interferes with a lawful meeting, procession, or gathering. Again, just a couple of pieces of that piece of legislation. State statute. And this one, the moderator, if a person conducts himself in a disorderly manner in any town, representative district, or voting district meeting. We have comments that have been submitted by our town moderator regarding our financial town meetings. But here's specific reference, if you see here. As I said, the moderator may order that person to withdraw from the meeting. On the person's refusal, may order the town sergeant or any constable present to take him from the meeting and to confine him or her in some convenient place until the meeting is adjourned. I don't want to belabor it, but these are references that you included, and I appreciate that. So, We have sign-up sheets, but no one wanted to speak, did they? So that's the other. Anyone in council, comments?
Well, I'd like to make a comment. I'd like the public to know that this initiative was taken in response to events that occurred first at the financial town meeting and then really erupted even more loudly and boisterously and prolonged at a zoning board hearing where the meeting was delayed for as long as 45 minutes until the state trooper was called in to remove them from the
And did
meeting.
you want to state for the record that you were present at that meeting?
I was present and I witnessed it, and although it's not part of the record, I was also commented back to me personally at that meeting by that person, which I will not address. But it was because of those two events where the meeting was disrupted to a great degree to the point that it discouraged a lot of people at the financial town meeting who left because of the display that occurred, that we felt that this initiative was necessary in order to maintain decorum at our public meetings.
I had a conversation with the town moderator after reading an email he sent to me, and he iterated, and then I reiterated. I think all of our concerns are that nobody wants to stifle debate, reasonable in a civil manner, so that people can be. And I'm talking now about the financial town meeting, a meeting that Frank is referencing was not a public meeting. It's public, but this was a zoning board that was here to conduct a hearing on an appeal, and the meeting, from what I'm told, had to stop because of a loud, boisterous behavior that was exhibited, which is totally inappropriate from my perspective. So anyway, I just like to, for the purpose of the public hearing, include Mr. Lancashire, who serves as our town moderator and has been for several years. He writes this: I applaud the thoughts behind the proposed decorum ordinance. I assume you will be packing I'm sorry, that was a tongue-in-cheek. I assume you will be packing at the next financial town meeting to enforce it. And his point is, what do we do when people are boisterous and misbehave? But then he goes on to say seriously, because he doesn't mean that. Seriously, I had several thoughts after reading it. It appears to be focused on council and board commission meetings, but notice it did say assembly, and that's an assembled meeting, our financial town meeting. I suggest, and the offender cannot return, see, he makes this point, except by majority vote of the town assembly. And I understand what he's saying here too, because if a group of people say, hey, we want this to happen, we want this meeting to be disrupted, I can understand his point here. I suggest you clarify it that one, it applies to the financial town meeting, and two, at least at the FTM, the moderator or presiding officer decides on readmittance. In other words, he's running the meeting, and he's not going to say to the public, you want this to happen or not? I mean, in other words, it's his call, and he thought that it should be addressed, and that's his comment. I don't think we want a debate or vote of the assembled multitude on whether to readmit person X. You might also consider adding a warning provision. I think it's a big deal to throw someone out of a public meeting, so I make it clear that if you get a warning, sit with the town sergeant. Next infraction results in expulsion. It's probably a good practice to provide for a warning in all cases.
And we have done that at financial budget meetings before. Richard and I, for the many years that I've been doing it, we've had encounters over the years where we've had to have people removed.
Oh, and we've all seen it done, and Peter has done this.
Yes.
I think his point probably is that if we're going to fall back on some written local ordinance, that maybe he thought that particular piece should be included. Jim, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I responded to Peter. I always very much value his input on things, and he makes some good points, but I think he's misread the ordinance. In particular, first of all, with regard to the readmission, he says you can't do it before readmitting. That's not what it says. It talks about cessation of address. That's when somebody's addressing. And what the ordinance says is anybody makes these types of comments or engages this kind of activity can be barred from further audience before the town assembly. That means, to me, it's old language, comes out of the statutes, comes out of our, also dovetails with our bylaws. I think what that means is you don't have further audience. You do not have, you cannot address. It doesn't say you're throwing them out at that point. That's addressed later on. So what would happen in this scenario, and this is exactly as Scott was saying, and as Peter has done in the past, you say, please stop. I'm going to put you, Peter says, I'm going to put you over in timeout. And that's a warning. And people go there when he's told, when they're told, or they stop, one or the other. And it's only after that, you'll see in the second section under enforcement of decorum, under removal procedure, that's a different procedure. And that talks about the ability of the chair to basically state, or the moderator in this case, to basically state the person has to leave. And that's usually as a last resort. At that point, the special constable or the town sergeant is obliged to carry out those orders. Peter also had a question about making it specific to financial town meetings, making it certain. I believe this actually came out of financial town meeting law. So when it says town assembly, I think that is primarily what it addresses, because there aren't many true town-wide assemblies that occur. So that's my point. I think he makes excellent points. If the council thinks you need to revise the ordinance to do that, that's fine, but quite frankly, I think that the ordinance addresses the problems that Peter said and does not take away at all the ability of the moderator to act as the moderator or the chair, in this case the town council president, if it happens here, feels needs to be taken. I also noted to Peter that when it talks about the readmission, a person shall not be readmitted once removed unless there's a vote that says readmit the person, or if a person is told to stop. That's basic parliamentary law. If someone says, wait a minute, I want to challenge the rule of the chair, if it's a town council meeting, and someone says, you've just stopped the person, I want to challenge that ruling. If done appropriately, the town council can then vote on whether or not to enforce that. That's a procedure. If that's invoked, it's then done. At a financial town meeting, any person in the audience could challenge a ruling of the chair, of the moderator. That's something that's been done since time immemorial. And once that's done, if someone stands up and says, I challenge the ruling of the chair of this person, I seek to overrule the ejection of this person, then the entire body can take a vote if it's done appropriately and in a timely fashion. So these are all rules of parliamentary procedure, none of which are trumped by these ordinances, but are intended to dovetail with those. So again, if the council thinks that there's ambiguity that you want to clear up, we can do that. That's certainly fine. But that's my explanation. I'm not certain that it's legally necessary.
Appreciate it.
For what it's worth, I think it's fine as written. Jim, I don't think it needs any clarification or modification.
Council discussion. Okay. Hearing none.
Make a motion to close the public.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded, close the public hearing. Those in favor say
Aye.
aye. Opposed, so voted.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed amendment as
Seconded.
And under discussion, I would like to say this. I absolutely approve, and again, thank you for bringing this forward. I'd like to say that, rules are there, and most people say, some people say, oh, rules are made to be broken, and we've all heard that. Well, I think this it's just important for people to understand that there's a concern here at this table. It certainly was a concern for me and from you, and I believe, Mr. Khan, you attended that meeting as well. And the conversations I had with these people the next day were, are you kidding? And then I followed up with our town sergeant, who was brought from another town where he was already engaged in something other than town business, and showed up here to assist. Thank you for that. I had a conversation with him, which leads us to the second ordinance. I would like to do this, with the ordinance. I would like to ask Madam Clerk to forward this particular ordinance, no, maybe not the second one, could, but this one in particular, to the chairs of the boards and commissions. Let them know that it was addressed tonight, that we adopted this after discussion, and want to bring it to their attention. And if they have other questions, they should pursue it through both boards, zoning and planning, have their own legal counsel, which they can address. But I think that they should be noticed that we've done this.
Is that a motion?
I would like to, yes, I would like you to do that. Does anyone object to that process?
If it's a motion, I'll second it.
Yeah. Well, I think the motion to adopt is on the table, and we could amend it to include that. Sure.
That's fine.
So, and then the second, well, won't you, Manny?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Second it.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So
Nay.
voted. Nay?
Yep.
Okay. One no vote from Dan. The second of this kind of companion, and I addressed some of this already through these other state statutes. This is a proposed amendment, again, to Chapter 2, Administrations, Article 3, Officers, Employees, Division 5, Town Sergeant, Town Constables, Section 2-201, and goes on. Section 2-202, Special Constables, Section 2-203, regarding attendance at meetings, and Section 2-204, disturbances at public assemblies.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion made and
Second.
seconded to open the public hearing. In favor, say aye. Opposed, so voted. Again, bear with me, folks, but I'd like to read this publicly for the purposes of the public hearing and anyone who might be following us on YouTube. Regarding this is Division 5, or Section 1, Article 3 of Chapter 2 of the Exeter Code of Ordinances, entitled Officers and Employees, is hereby amended by adding the following division and sections. Division 5, Town Sergeant and Constables. Town Sergeant, pursuant to Section 607 of the Town Charter, there shall be a town sergeant who shall be elected by qualified voters. The general election for 2-year term shall serve until his or her successor is elected and qualified. The town sergeant shall have and exercise such powers and duties as are prescribed by law or ordinance. Special town constables, Section 2-202. The Exeter Town Council at any duly convened town council meeting may elect for a term not exceeding 1 year, one or more special constables who shall have and exercise such powers and duties as may be prescribed by law or ordinance. Special constables shall serve at the pleasure of the council and shall perform such other and further duties as may be assigned to them by the town council and/or the town sergeant, as may be necessary to protect, preserve, or maintain the public peace, health, safety, or welfare. Any constable elected by the town council may be removed from office for cause at any time by the town council after written notice and after opportunity for public hearing. Attendance at meetings. In addition to all other duties prescribed by law, charter, or ordinance, it shall be the duty of the sergeant and/or constables, upon request of any town council member, or upon the request of the presiding officer, chair, or moderator of any town assembly, board, or commission, to attend any town assembly or any meeting of such council, board, or commission for the purpose of preventing any interruption or disturbance at such assembly or meeting, or to otherwise preserve the peace and good order of the town. The town sergeant and/or the town constables may remove any person found by the meeting chair, moderator, presiding officer, sergeant, or constable to have willfully interrupted, impeded, or disturbed the conduct of any such meeting. In furtherance thereof, the town sergeant or constables may also seek the assistance of and render all necessary aid and assistance to other state or local enforcement officers in the discharge of their duties. And finally, disturbances at public assemblies. Every person who shall willfully interrupt, impede, or disturb any lawful public assembly or meeting, or who shall obstruct any constable or town sergeant in the execution of their duties thereat, shall be in violation of the terms of this section, and shall be subject to the fines and penalties imposed by law or ordinance, including but not limited to those stated in section 1-15 and 1-16 of the Code of Ordinances. Once again, this was a result of my asking town solicitor to address the situation. He actually met with town sergeant. Thank you again for that. And this is a product of that discussion. So thank you again. Comments, council?
Again, I think this is just a companion piece to the decorum ordinance. And everyone has had their discussion heard. I would make a motion to approve. Oh, get ahead anytime.
Well, I was just going to ask if there's any other discussion. Dan, I know you did not support the other one. Do you think this is appropriate, or did you not support this either?
What was that, Ken? The one paragraph kind of contradicts itself. Section 2-202, Special Town Constables. Special constables shall serve at the pleasure of the town council and shall perform such other and further duties as may be assigned to them by the Exeter Town Council and/or by the Exeter Town Sergeant, as may be necessary to protect, preserve, and maintain public peace, health, safety, and/or welfare. Then the next sentence says, any constable elected by the council may be removed from office for cause at any time by the council after written notice and after opportunity for hearing thereon. I mean, that sentence contradicts the previous sentence. It says serves at the pleasure.
Well, I guess I don't read it that way, but
I don't think it contradicts it.
whatever.
I think that anybody who is told that their services are no longer wanted in midterm would be entitled to a hearing on it if they have been elected. So it is at the pleasure, but when it comes to the mechanism employed for actually terminating, then I think the cost probably should be shown.
Well, I'm just, again, I don't want to belabor it, but it seems like if someone's serving at the pleasure of the council, but then the council is no longer pleased, then I guess it's maybe time that they no longer serve. And I think that's what this suggests. Manning?
I agree with the solicitor.
Well, anyway, that being said, any other comments, discussion? Bill or Scope, may I just ask, is there anything you'd like to add, or does it help you a bit to, so you know kind of?
Having all these clarifications
Yeah.
in the written word helps a lot.
And again, we all know what I'm going to say, but I'm not sure everyone sitting here understands that Bill comes to us from a career in law enforcement, and now he's got a different career, and it's not quite like the one he had. So he knows what he probably would like to do sometimes, but not sure that his position here gives him that authority. Is that fairly well said, Bill? Sort of?
They're two distinct jobs.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
And
but it's difficult to work when you don't have tools either.
Yeah, like that.
Can I have one thing?
Please, please.
Because this is important. They both talk about duties at town meetings. One of them comes out of the state law that talks about special town constables. And there's one word that's different, or at least added, that I think is implied in the other ordinance as well. You'll see that in section 203 and 204, it talks about every person who shall, quote, willfully interrupt, willfully impede, willfully disturb. And as you know, when push comes to shove, if you go to court, after you've charged, if a person is actually charged with a violation, rather than just ejected, the question may become, how do you prove that they willfully did it? They thought they were just simply exercising their right to free speech. They thought they were simply, they didn't know they were getting loud. They didn't know they were disturbing people. That's where it comes in. That's where it's really important for the town sergeant, the town constables, the moderator, to maybe give that warning. To say, look, stop it, or we're gonna have to eject you. You are disturbing people. You are impeding the ordinance, the group. At that point, if they keep it up, then they are willfully doing it because they've been warned. So I mean, you have to read that kind of into it and use your common sense. I think that Peter always does that. I think you gentlemen always do that. You're faced with things like that. You don't just leap to it and grab them and throw them out. If you can talk to them in a safe manner, then it's always worth a shot at suggesting to them that they have one more chance, and before taking them out. Once they do, I think that willful is pretty much laid out. So.
Thank you. Anything else? I'll move to close the public hearing.
Seconded.
Motion is made and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted.
Mr. President, I would move that we adopt this ordinance as written.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is made and seconded. I assume there's no further discussion. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yay.
And that's a 4 yes and 1 no, Dan being opposed.